This on now? Yes. We had some difficulties first service, so I would just like to first start off by telling you guys a little bit about myself. So one thing I forgot to say, I was not one of the preschoolers at camp. I'm kidding. I specialize in that category. So during the Friday night before camp, I think, I'm skipping a part. So I'm a graduate of Twin Lakes High School this year, so big things coming ahead for me. I thought I had my plans figured out for next year until the other night. I was able to almost sit in silence. There's nothing going on in my head or anything like that, and I could feel like a voice talking to me. And people have told me that, yeah, they can hear the voice of God, but I never believed it. Like, that doesn't make sense. How does that work? Until I heard it. And it was telling me that, like, now is the time. Like, I've always felt a call to ministry in my life, and it was kind of telling me, like, now is the time that I needed to fulfill that calling. And so it'll be interesting. I think I'm going to stick with what I'm supposed to do in the fall, and then it'll be interesting to see where God takes me next. But today I'm going to be talking about a passage in Joshua. So I'm going to read some scripture out of Joshua 1, verses 7 through 9. It says, "Be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the law my servant Moses gave you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, that you may be successful wherever you go. Keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." So Joshua 1:9, the last verse in that is actually my favorite verse. It's on the back of this t-shirt. So I really, when I was told to do something out of Joshua, that was the first thing I went to, because that's what I know the most of. So what the story I'm going to be talking about is out of Joshua chapter 3. So give you some background on Joshua. Joshua was the successor to Moses, right? So there's a common misconception that Moses was the one who led the Israelites into the promised land, but Moses did not fulfill his duties before he was unfortunately passed away. So his personally appointed successor was Joshua. So the first thing almost that Joshua does, and the first thing in the Bible, is how Joshua leads the Israelites into the promised land. So God tells him, tell all your people to pack up their stuff. You're leaving. So the Israelites have been in the wilderness for 40 years because they were released from Egypt, and then they were ungrateful. They were complaining because they didn't have enough food, complaining because they had no shelter, all this kind of stuff. And they weren't grateful that God had taken them, or God had helped them get out of Egypt. So God punished them and made them live in the wilderness for 40 years. So anyways, we pick up on the story, and they get to the Jordan River. So it's a river in the Middle East. So they get to the Jordan River, and they have to cross the Jordan River somehow. And it's a pretty wide river, pretty deep river. And so the people are trying to figure out what they're supposed to do. And Joshua goes to God to figure it out. Well, back when Moses was the leader of the Israelites, he created something called the Ark of the Covenant. And so Joshua and the Israelites were carrying the Ark of the Covenant with them. And God had told Joshua to take the Ark of the Covenant and go take it out into the water. So the Ark of the Covenant, if you don't know already, is was one of the most sacred things in their religion at the time. And just touching it could have gotten you killed. So later on in the Bible, we see a story where a man is struck down because he touched the Ark of the Covenant without God's permission. So Joshua gets 12 men from each of the tribes, one person from each tribe, which equals 12, and told them to pick up the Ark of the Covenant and start walking out into the water. So these people get to the edge of the riverbed, and the river is during flood season, so the water's up higher, and So they get to the edge of the riverbed, and everybody's just kind of like looking at each other. That's how I imagine it being. They're all just looking at each other like, who's going to take the first step? Who's going to take the first step into the water? Well, it wasn't water once they took the first step, but who's going to take that first step into the water in case? And they knew that no matter what they did, if they would have walked out into the water, the Israelites would have followed, right? They were supposed to follow, and that's what they would have done. So they knew that they had like people behind them that would back them and that would be there for them no matter what they did. But they still looked at each other, right? If you can pull up Joshua 1:7, the first verse, I believe it is. So right in the middle of that, it says, do not turn from it to the right or to the left. So you can imagine these people are sitting there and looking to the right and to the left, like, who's going to do it? And I imagine one of them ended up finally doing it, obviously. That's how the story goes. So all of the Israelites finally get through the river and all that, and they get into the promised land, and the story goes on. And yeah, so the main theme behind this is that like somebody had to take the first step. Somebody had to be the strong and courageous one who took the first step out into the water, to take the first step so that the land in front of them dries up and the path is clear. So in my life, I've had a lot of people who have like helped me take that first step. And some of them are here, some of them are not. So they helped me take that first step. And I think the other night when I was sitting in my bed completely silent was when I took that first step. And taking the first step felt so relieving and so like, I don't know a synonym for relieving. I was going to say one, but whatever. It felt so relieving that like all this was left my head because I thought and thought about it and thought about it. And I didn't think that I was like righteous, like the one who should have been doing it all along. And taking that first step and then being reassured that it was correct was just like so relieving. And I encourage you guys to like try to like figure out what your calling is in God and to take that first step into the water or take that giant leap of faith. Thank you.